Howdy, howdy, everybody. This is Clara Lawrence. We had a little get together, I guess you could say, over at Judy's place, and it was Erika with Scarlett and Carrie and myself, and of course Judy. And we're all just kind of hanging out at her new little poorhouse and making art, hanging out, chit chatting, goofing off, and a lot of giggles. And of course, all the little uh, Pomeranians were there having a lot of fun with the pool outside, and we'll just, two sisters getting together. I'm sorry, I take that back. It's a sister and a brother getting together. That would be Bowie and Joplin and stuff. Anyway, so it was my turn to make some art, and I kind of grabbed a canvas and started with some alcohol ink, and I'm just kind of playing. There's no real plan. Grabbed some warm tones. I'm sorry I didn't get a picture of the colors I used. But I grabbed some reds and some yellows and kind of a hot pink and a red-violet type color. And thought I'd just get started playing with that. The pink, I was a little disappointed it didn't come out really bright like it looked on the screen, on the canvas for a little while it was wet. But that's okay. It still worked out pretty well. I also mixed up a solution of some Resin Art Bling It colors to play with, and I thought I would do something, with that at the end. So I'm messing with some of the alcohol inks, and you have to literally poke a hole in the end of these particular guys. So I'm trying to do that without squirting it everywhere. Anyway, so what I thought I would mess around with, and that was going on in my head, is having some saturation towards one color. One corner, and then lightly kind of fade it out to the other color and play with that part of fading out. You add alcohol to an edge and you bring it out a little bit more. You add some more alcohol to that far side and you bring that far side out a little bit more, and you keep doing that until it has a nice little fade and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm messing around with here. I've got a little bit of sound background going on, and that's all the little conversations that's going on in Judy's place. I'm going to play around with the volume on that so you can still hear the chatter like as if you're in the room, but yet not hearing the conversation. So I have to apologize. The table, we have the tripod on top of the table. It's actually a restaurant preparation table, and I think it's got a little bit of a bounce to it. So anytime I put that heavy heat gun down, it would, there goes the table. So sorry about that. And also Judy has one of those little cool pedals on the floor where you step on that and it controls the power to the heat gun. And to be honest with you, it took a little bit of time for me to get used to that thing. But it is handy, I have to admit. So here I am messing with just some of the lighter colors. I want it kind of be in the mid area. And with alcohol ink, when you get started with it, you kind of, it's more of a play in the beginning. It's like, where do you want the colors to flow? And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of experimenting with that for now. And I keep moving the colors around on all the sides, if you've noticed, and try not to put the heat source directly on top. And I'm messing around. I'm experimenting. The medium is still very, very new to me. And I keep giggling when everybody says, "Oh, you're the alcohol queen." Not quite. I'm still experimenting with the medium, still trying to figure it out. So as you see, I'm kind of going around in circles, and it kind of keeps the color in the middle, and it gives a little bit of a lighter fade to the outside, so it's not having that really dark ridge that sometimes can happen. So I'm trying to, I guess you could say, direct where I want the color to go a little bit. So that's me, and just in my brain trying to experiment a little bit with the medium and how to push it. And if you're new to alcohol ink, when you add alcohol on top of it, it reactivates the color, which is, on some hands it's a good way, and some hands it's like, I didn't want it to go there. But if you mess around with it, you can add more softer blends in a certain area. You can bring another color into an area. You can redo a section if you don't like that particular section. Or like I was talking about before, you can add alcohol to continue to extend your color out to a faded zone. So you see there by just moving that pink around, or that, I believe it was the pink, to that area, and it blended with that orange, it created a nice little, well, blend for the lack of better words. So I'm gonna let me continue to play for a little bit, and I'll jump in a little bit more and talk about the process. See you in a moment. How long you been here?
Literally as long as she can get.
5 years.
You can get used to the train. So I wanted to jump in and talk about this little area here in the corner. I've added these drips of a dark, what I thought was a dark red violet, and when I, of course, added the drips, then I was like, oh, this is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. And here I'm experiencing a different color shift, meaning that I was worried it was a red violet that had a lot of black in there, and I was worried that there might be some green tones popping up. So it ended up drying out fine as far as the tone. So I was real happy about that. It was kind of like the flip side of the pink. When I added the pink, I kind of got real excited because, ooh, this pink is nice and bright and almost like fluorescent like. But when it dried it to a softer version of itself. So I'm still happy with the color, but I was like, ooh, nice and bright, but it's like, oh, a little softer. But in this case of the color, see if you notice the darker red violet in the areas where it's kind of more of it dried in that puddle, it does come off rather dark. But the other areas where it's a little toned out or moved out, that medium tone of it is rather appealing. So I'm trying to lighten up some of those really super dark areas right there by adding some more alcohol and continuing to work in with the process. Like I said, there's a lot of play and just kind of moving the colors around until you get an area that is visually appealing at the moment in time, where that you kind of want to work with. It is definitely a feel process. It's kind of like resin art in a way. You're moving the colors around until something is visually appealing to yourself. I will continue to play and I'll jump in later.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know where your face is right now, but I found it. Tell her. I mean, she's gonna tell him.
Yep.
Oh, look at here, son. Alright, she's like, get your big paw out of my face.
Look how sharp her things are. They
It's
curl.
the bat against the fox.
She does look like a little bat, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Said it was junk.
She said the raw cannon because no matter where in the bag.
Need some
that they
tunes.
get it,
That'll help.
pretty pure.
So you can see there I decided to work on this corner a little bit. It was kind of bugging me. Sometimes when you use the heat gun, I'm going to kind of jump topics a little bit. If you direct it in the wrong direction, or even a dryer for that matter, it doesn't really matter, just some kind of wind air source, you can get these little tendrils. You see how the little scoops kind of came out there like little fingers? Sometimes it's visually appealing. There's a few in there that were kind of bugging me, and of course I've got to tweak out the corner. I just now started doing because it's threw out a bunch of these. But I started playing around with the alcohol and reactivating the colors in that little section there to minimize the tendrils because they weren't visually appealing. They weren't working with the circles and the other shapes as much. They were kind of like standing out on their own, trying to be their own little diva, for lack of a better description. So this is me just, again, manipulating it until it's visually okay with me. So one way you can do is when they do push out like that and they go out strong, it's got the ink that is traveling with the alcohol. And so what you can do is you can go back to the tip and push it back to the main puddle area so it doesn't deposit as much of the ink and allow it to dry. The more you can keep the heat source away from the area, the less it'll reduce down the drying time, so you have a little bit more time to manipulate it. So keep that in mind. If you want to manipulate it more, that sounds a little bit better. If you want to manipulate it more, keep your heat source a little further away. If you do want it to dry quickly, bring your heat source closer. So I'm going in, I think I've removed a little bit too much of the yellow and the orange, and so I've added a little bit more yellow to the zone to also reactivate the orange a bit too. And I'm going to start working on my fade outs fairly soon here, because I want to fade out to, I guess from your point of view, the upper right hand corner. And so I'm going to be reapplying alcohol right now in order to prepare for that. So I want it to be a little bit more appealing in that little section there, almost like smack dab in the middle of the canvas. And then I'm going to start working and adding alcohol to the outside edge, that the further right corner of the canvas or the color, and adding more alcohol in that zone and going further or closer and closer to the far right corner. And the tendrils that I just created there don't bother me so much. It's not as distracting, so it still works visually. You see there, it's almost like as if I'm not manipulating anything. I'm adding alcohol to the very edge. I'm bringing it into the color just a little bit to grab some of the color and let it go out. Go in a little bit, grab the color, and go out. Alright, and I've got some solution of the Bling It powders by Resin. There's, I believe, 3 different tubes. And I'm going to add some into certain areas. Oh, okay, this is the one I guess I'm dribbling. Okay, so there's, I believe it's called Milky Way. And it's almost a white pearlescent Bling It that Resin put out. And I put like a couple scoops in a little solution with alcohol. And you got to shake it up just before you use it, because it settles super fast. But it is almost like putting, when I'm dropping it down and when it dries, it looks almost like little pearl drops, which is really cool.
Is that alcohol?
And I come back later on, I'm not sure if it's immediate or a little bit later on, with some just straight alcohol and do little dots too. So not all the dots are the Bling It solution.
Some of the Bling It stuff.
And then you'll see me use another color of the Bling It in the white areas and start working with that around, and it actually puts down a kind of a sheen effect in the lighter zones. That's kind of fun too. And you'll really see the sheen and the pearlescent towards the end when I go in for the close-up and I start moving the canvas around. Now, one thing I want to stress, if you do use those powders, they do offer a lot of different effects that are kind of fun. But when the canvas is done and it's dried, it's important to seal it with some type of UV protectant sealant, and that way the powders themselves can get trapped in there. An ideal way would be also to coat it with resin. Of course, I'll probably end up doing that with most of my pieces that I use this stuff on. This particular little piece we did leave behind with Judy to kind of as a thank you, because she, her and her husband made, a nice little lunch for us and stuff. So hopefully, Judy, there's your hint. Put a resin coat on it. Anyway, so yeah, I like playing with resin and bring the piece up to another level, but that's another story. So this is me using it in the background and adding alcohol with it to continue to let it spread and add a background effect.
Do I want to know? Those are my Pac-Mans. Pac-Man? You do have a Pac-Man. You are funny.
Erika, I think that your painting needs to have resin coat on it.
I think you're right.
For sure in the end. I love that background color. What is that? You remember, or did you mix it?
But me?
All the colors.
Or hers?
It's a few different blues. It's two turquoises. Purple, yellow, green, light green, magenta. Yeah, I didn't use purple. I did.
Another thing I wanted to throw in there, and I use this technique also with resin art, is when I'm picking out a variety of colors like the yellow, orange, pink, and red, violet colors, and then I started messing around with the resin art stuff. When I usually pick out colors, and there's a variety of effects that you can also choose from. You can have your metallic colors and your pearlescent colors, your interference colors, your rich colors, and maybe even transparent. I don't like to go with like all metallics or all pearlescent colors or all transparent colors unless there's a specific reason for it, but I usually like to mix it up a bit. And by mixing it up, it lets one be a star and the other one might be a sneaky star. That kind of what, it's like that special color that, you just see little hints and bits to it. It might be more of an accent kind of a thing. And then you have one color that kind of grounds the whole piece together. So it's much more visually stimulating to have a variety versus having all one particular style. Now, the only way this is like maybe different is if it is suiting a specific purpose. Like if, let's say you're doing an ocean scene and you want to have a bunch of different transparencies to have that element of depth in there, then obviously transparencies would be a way to go. But I'd probably still even, jazz it up a little bit and have some blues in there with maybe a little bit of shimmer to it or something like that, just even amongst all the transparencies. But that's generally how I handle colors, and especially colors that have effects in there. And that's why I changed it up with, having these nice little warm tones, and then throwing the blankets with the pearlescence to it. And they also have an interference color in them too, so some of them will shift with it with the light. So I kind of like that too. So we want to throw that in.
Wait, remember because this is with the blood clot one, and this is the blood clot on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's like full completely. And it's not, it's like sparse on here. It's really soft shirt. Something's missing out on my shirt. You see nothing?
Can you imagine if that alcohol spills too long? How causes those sensitive noses that
I don't hardly notice it when the droplets out.
Yeah. Well, when you're focused on a project, it's easy to
But I did miss.
ignore it a little bit.
It when I came back in.
So I'm in the zone right now. I'm missing a lot of conversation. In fact, a couple of people even called me out and said, "Hey, Clara, you paid attention to us?" Nope. Didn't even know what was going on. The only time I woke up was just about now. I think all the dogs started barking at Judy's granddaughter that showed up. But it's kind of fun when you get to that point in artwork where you can totally ignore everything. It's like you've gone to the next level and you've really zoned in on your focus, or you're just feeling the moment. Time can pass by so quickly. And I hope that everybody who has been able to play with artwork can experience that. And I've been working really, really hard over the last couple of years to get to that place where I was able to experience that again. And only recently, like within the last few months, I've been able to get little glimmers of it here and there. So I'm still kind of giddy when that happens. And it actually happened with a whole lot of people around. So that's pretty cool for me. So, and if you're wondering what the heck am I talking about, there's some videos I posted recently about artist block, and I think the second one I kind of go into why I've been struggling with this. But yeah, it's a cool experience. And everybody might recognize that hand because we've seen that hand a bunch. That's Miss Erika Bauer. I think she got a True Color video for the ATD Pour group. So if you're listening to this, come check us out. All right. We're going to come in for some pretty shots, and I'll see you guys later. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, get notified whenever I throw something out there as far as videos, and I'll see you later on.
What is that?
Bye.
It's one of those laser cutter things.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Really neat.
Resin stuff sparkled like crazy.
Did you put that sparkle stuff in there?
Yep. Wait till you see.
You don't want her to get any bigger.
It's like got baubles of little sparkles.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I think that's the Milky Way stuff.
I don't think she's going to. She's almost 6 months old.
Yeah.
That's probably.
Don't even dare think about touching it right now until we seal it. Let's see.
Those little feet are
Pick up the shimmer that's all over.
nothing to go into it.
There.
If I get this.
Except her attitude.
I could see it though when you had it down.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty.
Bristle.